Bonjour les jeunes, c'est notre première classe de français et je tenais à vous dire que je suis heureuse d'être avec vous pour cette classe. I'm so happy to be with you for this class. Let's see, qui est dans cette classe? Nous avons Christina, bonjour Christina, bonjour Louis, bonjour Pierre, bonjour Joshua, bonjour Mylene, bonjour Ailem, bonjour Josué, qui est nouveau, bonjour Stéphanie, bonjour Emmanuel, bonjour Jonathan, et bonjour Hector, et bonjour Isaac. Très heureux de faire cette classe avec vous. Ok, dans notre classe de français, nous allons parler en français le plus possible. Nous allons parler un petit peu en anglais, mais nous allons parler beaucoup en français. Okay? So before we start, I have to tell you a little bit in English why we learn French, right? Why do we learn French? And what is the French language and what does language mean? Do you remember that every time you study something, you need to ask yourself, why am I studying what I am studying? Why am I learning this? Why is the reason, right? You have to find out the reason why. So let's look at what language means. A language means this. In Webster's 1828 dictionary, it says that language is human speech, right? It pertains to us. It pertains to the human being, the languages. The expression of ideas by words or significant articulate sounds for the communication of your thoughts. So basically your thoughts are communicated through sounds and articulations, right? And through words that are coming out of your mouth, and that is language. And so, you know, for me, my language was French, my very first language, because that's where I was born. That's the only one that I knew. For some of you, it was Spanish. For some of you, it was English. So it changed, it differs according to where we were born. All right. Now, why do we learn to speak French? So we need to know, why do we learn to speak French? So number one, French used to be the world's language of diplomacy. Diplomacy means how the leaders of the nations communicate with each other. So from the 17th century all the way to the mid-20th century, it was French. French was the official language. Then it slowly changed, and now it's English. But French was spoken by most of the world. People spoke French. Also, statistics shows that 60% of English words come from French. And that's a whole history lesson of how it came about, but I'll share that with you. But it was between Britain and France, and the history between the two. And I don't know if you've ever heard of William the Conqueror, but it was during that time period that French became the language in England, because William the Conqueror, or Guillaume le Conquérant, he was French, and he conquered England, part of England, and made it official that French was going to be the language of England. So they started mixing the languages of French and the English of the time, and they started bringing up new words, and that's why 60% of the English words that we know today actually are French words. They come from the French language. It's also a Latin language. The Latin root of the French words is just like the Spanish words come from Latin root. So if you know Spanish, actually French is very similar when you see it written. Pronouncing it is a little bit more difficult because the accent is so different. We don't roll our R's like in Spanish. Our tongue doesn't move around. It stays the way it is. And the R comes from the throat. We don't roll our R's like you guys, like the Spanish speaking people do. All right, so to learn French also is because we want to learn from French people who have written important and instrumental books that our founding fathers here in the United States read and knew very well, and that have even influenced the way that they have done things here in making this nation such a great nation. You will learn about Montesquieu and D'Aubagne. Those are two very key people, and we will learn more about them during French class. Also, learning French is to understand God's providence in French and American history and their long history together. Because see, you have to understand that France and America and the United States have had a long history of different things happening between the two nations. And so you can see God's working in and through France, and God working in the United States, and how those two nations have worked together. So that's really important also, and you will learn that in French history. And then lastly, but very important, is that you will be able to communicate with French-speaking people all over the world. There are many, many, many nations where we speak French, or where French is spoken, and I will actually link a video that I want you to watch, and this lady talks about all of the different nations in the world where French is being spoken. And I want you to look at it, and I would really like for you to write down all the nations and all the countries that you can as she speaks, so that you can see that there are so many countries where French is being spoken. And you know, you never know where God is going to take you. You never know when you're young and you're learning. You have to really trust in God's providence. Let me give you a little bit of an example. When I was young, when I was a teenager in France, in school, we had to take 2 languages. When I think I was 12 and 15 when I took those 2 languages. So one of them had to be English, and then the second one, I had to choose between Spanish and German, and I chose Spanish. Now, I believe that God led me to choose Spanish because He knew that I was going to need Spanish for the future. And so today, I know Spanish because I learned in school, and then I lived in Venezuela for a year and a half when I was older. But God's providence is very important. It's very important to remember that God works in our lives for a purpose and for a reason. And so you never know right now, why are you learning French? Maybe it's because one day you'll marry somebody French. Who knows? I learned English, and I didn't know it at the time, but I married an American. So I needed to know English, right? Also, maybe God is going to take you to a place. Maybe you will become a missionary to, to maybe Haiti, or to a country that where French is being spoken. So it's very important to just trust God. Or maybe in your job, you will need to know French because they will send you somewhere in Canada, in Quebec, where you have to know French. You never know where God is going to take you. What you have to do at this point is trust God that there is a reason why you're here, and there is a reason why we have French classes here at CLIP. So, all right, I hope that this helps you to understand why we learn French here and why you are learning French this year. Now, I know it's going to be a little bit difficult because of social distancing. So we're going to take it easy. We're going to take it slow. And then when we get back together and we're back in class, we'll be able to move forward. So I'm going to send you that video. I'm going to send the link on WhatsApp, on your class's WhatsApp. And that way you'll be able to watch it from there. Now, let's go over that. The paper that I sent you is this one. And this is lesson 15. Now, we finished, this is the last lesson that we did last year. And I wanted to review it because it's got important verbs in that lesson. So let's go over this page. So the first thing that you see is the proverb. And it says, impossible n'est pas français. Impossible n'est pas français. And that just means that impossible is not French. So the French people are not okay with saying things are impossible. So they're just determined to make it happen. And that's a great saying for everyone, not just the French. It's a great thing. To me, it's a very American saying too, because the Americans are like that too. They don't take impossible as the last word. They just think, no, all things are possible. And with God, remember, all things are possible, right? So, impossible n'est pas français. We could say, impossible n'est pas américain. And we could say, impossible n'est pas chrétien, Christian, right? Impossible is not Christian. That's right. Okay, so let's look at the first words. I'm going to say them, and I just want you to repeat them. So I want you to repeat them and maybe say them at the same time I say them. Okay, so I say it, you repeat, and then I say it again, and we say it together. All right, you ready? So the first one is finir. Finir, which means to finish. Second one, choisir. Choisir. To choose. Number 3, réussir. Réussir. To succeed. Number 4, tenir. Tenir. To hold. 5, venir. Venir. To come. 6, obtenir. Obtenir. To obtain or to get. Contenir. Contenir. To contain. Dormir. Dormir. To sleep. Courir. Courir. To run. Sortir. Sortir. To go out. All right, now notice all of these verbs end in IR, right? Tous les verbes finissent avec IR. So those are your IR verbs. And your IR verbs, the regular IR verbs finish the exact same way.